hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School. We break down the most controversial subjects, the most interesting topics, the most engaged debates going on in the world today. Tonight, we have a sort of a special episode. Special in the sense that we're not driven primarily by news topics, although some stuff in the news will certainly come up. But instead, we are going to be driven by information. Every once in a while, we get a guest on here who represents an idea or a movement or a tradition that we want to know more about and that we want to ask interesting, complicated, and maybe even challenging questions about. Now, a lot of times we do that on office hours. Just depends on who the guest is. But tonight I thought would be an interesting opportunity to do that with the brother, Captain Tazaryach. If you don't know him, then you probably don't spend too much time in these social media streets, because his brother is in a lot of places having a lot of debates with a lot of people. Tazaryach represents, I'm going to try and get this right, but if I don't, he'll tell me, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. That's the tradition that I understand to come from, the ISUPK. It's had different names, different iterations, but that is the movement. Informally, they're often known as the Black Hebrew Israelites. I just say Hebrew Israelites. And they have a very particular worldview, a very particular vision. And it's interesting, right? Because people have said to me at least 5 times, yo, you need to debate Tazaryach. And I always say, why I gotta start with a debate? You know, I want to have conversations with people. Now, I ain't got an issue debating people. I debate all kinds of people all the time. But I don't begin from that place. I begin from a place as an educator of saying, yo, how do we have healthy conversations? And the way to start is by having a healthy understanding of who people are, what people's traditions are, right? I mean, how can I debate a Jehovah's Witness if I don't understand what they believe? How can I debate a Muslim if I don't understand what Muslims believe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And so I want to begin from a place of asking questions. Now, I'm pretty well read in this area, and I've been studying this for a long time. But I study for knowledge, not for debates. Debates just kind of happen, right? Anyway, so I want to bring this brother on in just a second, but I want to just set a little bit of context, and then he can help me out. You know, first I want to say again, and shout out to everybody in the Night School audience that's normally here. I also see some people here who seem to be representing the school. Shout out to them as well. Sending shalom out to y'all as well. I see people here sending love to their brother, to our brother, and I think that's dope. I want to have, just to set the table again, this is not a antagonistic exchange. This is not a beef or a battle. I may ask some questions, and I'm certainly going to disagree with some stuff, and we can have those conversations. And largely, this for me isn't a religious debate. Not to say that we won't talk about religion and faith and texts and tradition, but you know, I ain't trying to persuade nobody, and I don't want to be persuaded. I want to have the conversation about what Hebrew Israelites believe. I think that that's important. And I also want to get his take on a few things that are going on in the world. You can't talk about Hebrew Israelites without talking about the state of Israel. They're not one and the same, let me be clear. But you can't talk about Hebrew Israelites without talking about the state of Israel. You can't talk about Hebrew Israelites without talking about Palestine. You can't talk about Hebrew Israelites without talking about a longer tradition of Black freedom struggles and Black liberation traditions and Black nationalist traditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, this is just a dope opportunity also to talk to a brother. This is my first time on camera with this brother. We had a quick phone conversation earlier today. We've texted and chatted and DM'd a few times trying to make this happen. I hope the brother didn't think I was avoiding him. It literally was just scheduling life, man. But we made it happen. I'm excited to see him here. And let me welcome to Night School the Captain Tazaryach, serving under the leadership Commanding General Yohana Brother Captain Tazaryach, welcome to Night School.
Hey man, I'm glad you got me on, man. Shout out to Marc Lamont Hill. Like he said, we've corresponded behind the scenes, and not one time did I ever think that you ducking anything like that. We all got schedules, and that's the thing with life. What's the term they say? Life be life, and sometimes
Yes, sir.
life,
Life be life.
Life be life, and so you can't say somebody. I hate when people say like you ducking or you doing this. Even like when you were saying when people expecting everything to be a debate. I think it's always good, especially for black men to come together and you can actually have a conversation too.
Yeah.
Even if you disagree in the conversation, it don't have to be a debate just because you disagree. You just have your opinion. I have my opinion, and I think we're both intelligent, mature men to where even if there comes a subject where we disagree, it don't turn into some super duper debate, and people could see two black men having a conversation about it. If I'll use an example, like I think 2 years ago, I did this podcast with Tariq Nasheed. And Tariq Nasheed is somebody that his ideology is totally different from mine. But before the outset of the conversation, we said we're not gonna give a debate. We're just gonna be two black men speaking on the direct issues. And we was able to have like a 90-minute to 2-hour conversation without having that. And I think that's what people need to see. Everything don't have to be contentious all the time. Now, is there a space for it? For those that know me, there is a space for debates and battles and stuff like that, but it's also spaces for, conversations and learning from people's different position as well. So I appreciate you having me on the show.
For sure, for sure. Let's start with this tradition itself. A lot of people out there don't understand or know what Black Hebrew Israelite means, or what Hebrew Israelite means. And the reason I'm using the word Black is partly because other people use it, including some of our collective enemies. And
that's what we got in common.
For sure. And then there's also people who use it as an academic. I'm inclined to use it at times because I want to kind of frame y'all in a bigger conversation with Frank Cherry, Rabbi Wentworth. I want to frame your tradition of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. I want to frame your tradition of, to a lesser extent, Dr. York and or Rabboni Yeshua at the time, and the Nubian Islamic Hebrews, right? An organization to which I have ties, right? So, I in the past, long past, but
I understand.
Yeah, I gotta say that for the people before the Nuwabians be on my head. You know what I mean? They be focused on the wrong things, man.
Right.
but all that to say, who are Hebrew Israelites? How do you define Hebrew Israelite?
I'm glad you mentioned the FS Cherry and stuff like that because a lot of people think like being an Israelite is something that's kind of fairly new.
Yep.
They don't know, like, Harriet Tubman knew she was an Israelite. You mentioned FS Cherry, Rabbi Wentworth, Ford. Being an Israelite really goes way back. It's almost like the untold history. Like they have Black History Month, and they always discovering new things. They have like Black inventions of this and that. And so when you actually delve into the history of being an Israelite, you'll find out that it actually goes pretty deep. Also, like when you said in the beginning, when you was talking, when you said Black Hebrew Israelite, and then you said Hebrew Israelite, because Black Hebrew Israelite has a acronym called BHI, and that's something that the Israelis came up with to make it derogatory for anybody like us to say we're Israelite. It's like, oh, that's them Black Hebrew Israelites over there. They ain't, like, almost to make it seem like they not the real Israelites. They just the Black,
Black
Hebrew, right? So. And so that's why I was glad that you said it the way that you said. But for us, being a Hebrew Israelite is us really getting back to our identity, our heritage, our culture. One of the things that we feel that Black people suffer from is an identity crisis, which is why we have so many different religious beliefs, religious factions, religious sects. I mean, even you mentioned the Nuwabians, you have Muslims, you have Christians, you have atheists, all these different belief systems that we go into. For us in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, currently under Command and General Yohana, we teach that our identity starts and stops with the Bible. So we identify with being the children of Israel. And so now that gives us an identity, gives us a culture, It gives us law, gives us code of ethics that's uncontrolled by man. Like most, even Christianity is controlled by man. It's like what their doctrine believes. Islam, the same thing. Any other cult has the same thing. When it comes to being an Israelite, the laws is already set. So if we say you can eat this and you can't eat that, it's not what I came up with. We're gonna read it in the Bible and say this is what the Bible says. If we say you can only marry a certain people, we're gonna say it says it here. So everything that we live by is already written. So it's not something that Commander Jenny Hanna came up with and said, okay, we're gonna do it like this. We can read in the Bible. So it's really about giving us an identity, giving an answer to the age-old question, like who we are. Like if you ask 10 people, 10 black people who they are, you're going to get 10 different answers. Some, the Christian, atheist, 5%, Jehovah's Witness, like as if your religion is your identity. But if you ask a white person, even if they started as white, they might say I'm Irish or I'm Italian, and then they can tell you what it means to be Irish. They can tell you what it means to be Italian. We don't really know what it means to be black. It's going to come to either some music, some sports. It's going to come to a religion, but it's not going to really give us a culture. So being an Israelite, first and foremost, is about giving us an identity that gives us a moral code, moral ethics, a God. That's how we teach it. That's how we push it.
That's actually very helpful. When I think about that long tradition of Black Hebrew Israelites, and I mentioned Rabbi Wentworth, Matthew, I think about the commandment keepers for those that don't know.
Right.
You talk about all the way back in Harlem over 100 years ago. Again, for y'all to think Hebrew Israelites are a new thing, they're certainly not. Even as an organized named body, Captain Tazaryach is also talking about a longer tradition. We'll talk about Harriet Tubman and all that stuff.
Right.
But even in terms of self-identifying, we got over a century of this tradition. A lot of those people come out of a church, though, right? A lot of them identified as Christians. But as they went through the Hebrew Bible, they said, wait, Exodus, that's us.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Even further, a lot of them learned from Jewish people. Because, at that time, you got us, being in all these different, even historically, there's what they call a slave Bible. So the slave Bible was when they took out certain verses that they felt would cause a rebellion amongst the slaves. This is what makes a Nat Turner, F.S. Cherry, Denmark Vesey, what make them so historical, because when they got their hands on the actual Bible, it did inspire rebellion. Anybody can look that up. So when it comes to the history of it, a lot of them, like even our founding fathers, Abba Bivens, Ariah Yaquab, they learned by going into Jewish synagogues. And as they going into the Jewish synagogues, thinking that they're going to be Jewish for all intents and purposes, or in a Christian church, they're going to be Christian or they're going to be Jewish. And then when you start reading the Bible and then you start looking at what's happening to us, and then you start looking at the Jewish people and you start looking at the Christian, you say, okay, this don't really line up biblically. The way it's described and the way they look doesn't look like who you're telling me are the people of the book. The prophecies that you're saying are ascribed to these people don't look like it's ascribed to them. And then so the Matthews, the Fords, all these people start leaving out of the Christian church and out of the Jewish synagogues because they're finding out that the people that are teaching them the Bible, really, we should be teaching them technically, because it's our record. So as they start realizing that they were the people, they start leaving out of those synagogues, they start leaving out of those Christian churches. And then that's when we start establishing and start learning on our own. And of course, as a baby in the infant stage, you're just growing. So you're learning. So at one point, they might not have believed in Jesus. And then as they start learning, then they believe in Jesus. They might not believe in Moses or even have the full understanding of the Bible that they should. But the one thing that those men did know is that they were the people of the book. And so we always look at it spiritually, that the Lord will pour out his spirit upon all flesh and we will prophesy. So that's what you see with the F.S. Cherries, the Wentworths, the Fords, the Abba Bivens, the Ariahs, the Yaquabs, all the way up to now. And it's really because of the internet. So it's a lot easier for information to spread, as opposed to back then. It was like if you wasn't like in the New York area or in the Chicago area or something like that, it would be hard to grasp or get this information.
You said a couple of things, and we're going to address some of the comments that come in as they come in when they're useful. We'll take questions as well. But I want to speak to, in particular, one sister who just wrote in and said, Rabbi Matthew was not a Hebrew Israelite. They rejected Jesus and Christianity, practiced Judaism. I think that's, I don't disagree, but I think Rabbi Matthew would say that they were Hebrews and that Ethiopians were of the tribe, among the 12 tribes. But they have initially identified as a church, right? They were, they became the commandment keepers, Ethiopian Hebrew Israelites. But remember, at one point they were. Let me see if I can find it because I don't want to give it wrong.
Yeah, and I think what people have to understand is that even when Rabbi Matthew and stuff like that, they still were Israelites. Like,
right.
Whether you say whether they reject Christ or not does not take away from them being an Israelite. Even during the time of Christ, Israelites rejected Christ. So we could read in the Bible that they rejected Christ. They told Caesar, "We have no king but Caesar," and those is Israelites rejecting another Israelite. That doesn't take away from the point of them starting out in the Jewish synagogue and then realizing they were the people. So even if they didn't believe in Christ all the way, they did know that the Jewish man was not the Jewish man, was not the Jew. They knew that they was a Jew. And I think that's the most important part of the story, because in the infant stage, you had two different types. I always call it like two different types of Israelites. You had Israelites that started out Christians, and you had Israelites that started out in Judaism. And so as they transition out of Judaism and Christianity, of course, their foundation is going to be learning from that position before they would graduate to another. So we have a lot of Israelites that started out in Judaism and then become what we would call Messianic Jews, for people to understand the terminology.
Which is a very important conversation we're going to have, because I've been in Israel and watched Messianic Jews not be allowed in. And we'll talk about that. I want to talk about this whole idea of what it means to be Jewish in just a second. But you are you're identifying Hebrew Israelite not as a religious faith per se, but as a national identity and ethnic identity. Would those be fair labels? Ethnic and national identity?
Yes, it would be ethnic, meaning like you can't, like in religion, anybody can conform to that. So a Hispanic, a Chinese, or Japanese can be Christian. In our belief system, you have to ethnically be an Israelite. So in North, Central, and South America, we would say the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And then you got Israelites in Africa, you got Israelites in Europe, you got Israelites in Asia. But if you're not ethnically an Israelite, you can't be an Israelite. That's where our position is from.
Okay. So, and please correct me if this isn't right. I just pulled this up, but this looks like the signs that I've seen.
Yes, that would be correct. That's the correct sign.
Okay. Anybody who has spent time, we're gonna talk about that too. Anybody who spent time in an urban city has probably seen one of the Israelite schools outside teaching. And one of the things that you will often see when you see them outside is a sign. Now, the sign isn't as pretty as this one. I actually think they're much better on the street, because y'all make them, and what I mean, they're very different than the kind you're seeing right here, which is more.
But that's more basic, straight to the point, where they could just look right at it.
Right. Exactly. And I get that, and I ain't mad at that. But when I see the sign, I've always wondered this, and I've never had an opportunity to really ask anybody. They're saying that, again, for those who don't know, there are 12 tribes of Israel in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, to be more specific. And you all argue that each of these ethnic groups or national groups are descendants of those different tribes. So American Blacks are the tribe of Judah, which, as an American Negro myself, I'll take it. But then we got the West Indian Blacks are from Benjamin, Haitians from Levi, etc., etc. It's always seemed so neat, those lines, and with partly just because of all the mixing that seemed hard for me to believe, but also because of like Dominican, Cuban, Puerto Rican, Haitian. I mean, all that is
close.
Yeah. How did you all determine which lineage was which. And I'll be honest with you, because I don't want, this isn't a gotcha. I have heard arguments that some of the early organizational founders said that they made this up.
Right. Yeah,
So
so that's a falsehood, that the person that's from the earlier organization is not actually legit. So the first thing, the 12 tribe chart is a marker. So it's not an absolute, meaning like you have people that might look native, people that might look black, and then you find out that they're Native Indian, but they think that they're black. So it's really just a marker where this is where the dominant people are from each one of these tribes. So a lot of this is history. A lot of this is prophecy in the Bible. Like there's a good book called Lost Tribes in Promised Land, written. This is when a scout by the name of Montesinos. So of course, when the white man was coming over here, he enslaved the Native Indians and black people and stuff like that. And then he started observing the Seminole Indians, Native Indians, the Taino Indians. And so as he's observing them, it's I think it's page 364 in the book Lost Tribes in that book right there. And in that book, the Seminole Indian greets the other Seminole Indian with the Hebrew credo, which is Shema Yasha Allah Yahweh Allah Nawa Yahweh Akkad, which is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." And then he says, "I myself am from the tribe of Reuben." So now the Seminole Indian is saying what tribe he's from. And then he says, "My brother Joseph is on an island nearby." Now Joseph represents Ephraim and Manasseh, which would be the Taino Indians, which today would be the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans. Now, also for the record, we're not saying every single Puerto Rican is an Israelite, because you have Spaniard influence. Just like we're not saying every black person is a Judite, because you have white influence. Meaning, like if your father is white, then you're not. Just like if your father's a Spaniard, although they call themselves Puerto Rican, we wouldn't classify them as an Israelite because they come from a Spaniard background as opposed to a Taino background. That's the whole ethnic part. Same thing with the Levites. So a lot of it is prophecy, historical data. That's how we determine the tribes, so to speak. And also too, because this is the other flack we get. They say, well, we came over here from Africa. What about the people in Africa? This chart is only for the location of North and South America. It's not a chart for Africa. Africa would have a different chart altogether, because North America is not in Africa. So if we was in Africa,
so a Nigerian is one of these tribes. You're just saying we don't know which one.
Right. So like we came from the west coast of Africa. So you can have Israelites that come from Ghana, Israelites from Ashanti, Israelites from like Nigeria that you're saying. So we don't deny that we were over there. But it's so like, just like we wouldn't say, if I said Americans are not black, people will understand that, because we're in the minority, we're not the majority. So when we say Africans are not Israelites, because we're the minority, we're not the majority. The majority of them would be actual Hamites, would be the term that we would use.
Inspired by Ebony Love, who if I remember correctly, based on what she wrote in the comments, I don't know her, said that she was, I think she comes out of the Rabbi Wentworth tradition. She said completely made up fantasy. Mm-hmm. It is counter to genetic genealogy, records of slavery, cultural anthropology, all things logical and common sense. They made it up. I want to push her question a little bit further, because I don't want it to become a ad hominem kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
What is the evidence of this? Like, where could people? Because typically, you all offer scripture, you offer books. You know, the best thing people can do is offer evidence. What evidence do we have to sort of substantiate the claims about the tribes?
So I'm actually gonna look up the link that I have. We actually provide a full 12 tribe chart lecture on this subject. I'm gonna see if I can get it for you.
Okay, and feel free to drop it in the chat, because my team will look at this is class, this is night school, so they will read. They'll do the homework.
No sweat. And so what this does, I'm just looking it up. It's on my Cross the Line radio channel. My good fellow captain, Tazaryach, did a very intrusive. Now it's a long lecture though, just to let you know. So he did a very intrusive breakdown on each tribe. So when he talks about the tribe of Judah, he gives the evidence. When he talks about the tribe of Benjamin, he gives the evidence. So that's where you get more in detail. Like I'm kind of giving like a broad view of it. So I'm just trying to find it. Just give me a second. It might be easy if I just search it on my phone.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
no
going to
worries.
find it and I'm going to put it in the chat. But that will give more in detail. So when people say like it's impossible to state that, like I said, a lot of people don't know Harriet Tubman knew she was an Israelite. Her whole family, as a matter of fact, Captain DeBar Month that's in our school comes from that tradition. So his lineage, his line goes back to Harriet Tubman, and so they always knew that they was Israelites when they came over here off the slave ships. So that history has always been known. So it's not like an unknown.
When you say she knows she was one of the 12 tribes, just say a little bit more so people understand what you mean.
She had a Hebrew name. She had a Hebrew name. They
You talking
came
about
out of
Moses?
the Ashanti tribe from west coast of Africa. So out of that Ashanti tribe, they knew that they was Israelites. So when they came over here as slave ships to America, they kept that tradition of knowing that they were Israelites. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. There the and I'm pulling this up again to give you a full sort of opportunity to respond to it. Abba Bivens,
Yes.
he was a member of the Commandment Keepers who eventually left.
Yeah, he's our father. We were just talking about him today. He's our father of ISUBK.
Yeah, he is the father of ISUPK.
Mm-hmm.
There are claims from people who say they were right there that the founding sort of, and I mentioned this earlier, that sort of the founding members of the organization made up some of this stuff. They went from the kind of original tradition of saying, look, we are we are the Jews of the Bible, we are the Hebrews of the Bible, we are the Israelites of the Bible, to sort of moving almost further. I think about, like, for example, with the 5%ers, the Nation of Islam, you have the Nation of Islam, then you have Clarence 13X, who starts the 5% movement. People always sort of move from, it's not uncommon for people to be in one place and move to another one. Yahweh ben Yahweh. People move from organization to organization. Sometimes they bring the doctrine with them and just want to leave the organization. Sometimes they leave the organization and add stuff and take away stuff. One of the arguments is that the ISUPK became a kind of not just a splinter group, but one that started adding stuff and making up stuff. One of them being the sort of 12 tribes language. What do you say to that?
What I say is they're absolute liars, is what I would say outright, and here's why. Because first of all, when Albert Bivens first came in, he had Marshall and Arya and Yaiqua with him. It was those four. So Albert Bivens is the one that left the Commandment Keepers and believed, because he became messianic. So as he's becoming messianic and they're learning the truth, they began to break down. Now, Albert Bivens was unalived by Muslims when he was out. So as he goes out on the streets to teach, and when I'm saying Muslims, I would say black Muslims, they were told not to teach, and he went out and taught anyway. They ended up beating him up, and he died from his injuries. Commander Jenny Hanna just gave the history on this at our Passover that just happened, like last Thursday. And reason why I trust Commander Jenny Hanna, because he was, so if you have the 7 heads that started the school, he would be the 8th person that came into the school. So he would have that information. Also, when it comes to the 12 tribe chart, the history that I just presented with Lost Tribes in Promised Land, that has nothing to do with ISUBK in the sense of them writing that history. Like, it's one thing to just go into the Bible and say so. It's another to go to history to be able to line up the history with what we're saying. So when we can line up the history and then back that up, that's what also stakes the claim. So there is no evidence. A lot of people, ISUBK was started in 1969. The first split in ISUBK was in the 90s. The second one was in the early 2000s. Since that time, you have had a lot of people that lay claim to either being in the school, knowing somebody from back in the school, and because they have a disdain for the 12 tribe chart, because you have a lot of people that reject the Hispanic tribes, that they just want the Israelites to just be all Negroid. So you have people that have a Negro only perspective. And that's where we get a lot of flack for the chart, because our chart is not emotional. So from emotional position, it's like, okay, we just gonna be all black. From just the truth of it, we're gonna say, no, the Hispanics are there too, the Native Indians are there too. We all share this history, and you can prove that in the Bible. Even coming over here to America, when you go to 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, the 40th verse, you can see the trek to get over here was done back then. So there's a lot of history that predates ISUBK being founded that we just was able to get. and then just put it together with the scriptures and make it prophecy.
Why aren't you Jewish?
Why am I not Jewish? Because Jewish in the Bible lets you know that it's something that's made up. The only time you see Jewish in the Bible, it says we have not fallen for cunningly devised Jewish fables. So when you see Jewish in the Bible,
or Jew, how about the word Jew? Forget Jewish, Jew.
Okay, when you say Jew, you mean like Judaism type Jew?
Like from the tribe. I mean, so it's a good question. It's a fair question. And for the audience's benefit, I want to be clear. The word Jewish in the Bible doesn't appear a lot, but the word Jew certainly does.
Yes, right.
So people don't often make that distinction, so I don't want them to think that we're saying that the word Jew.
Right, and I just want to make sure I answer it right. Because like when you say Jewish, I'm thinking Judaism. If you say Jew, I am a Jew. I'm a so-called black man, so I would be from the tribe of Judah.
But you're saying it's because you're from Judah or because people were from Judea, not because of your faith practices.
Yeah, not because of my faith practice. Because let's say if I was from West Indians, I would be Benjamin.
Got you.
Now,
and they're not.
Yeah, so now but in the Bible, depending on how it's used, Jews became collectively for Israel in some instances, because in 2 Kings, when you had the split between the two kingdoms, so you had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The southern kingdom became Judah, the northern kingdom became Ephraim or Israel. So by the time you get to Christ, when he starts saying Jews encompass Judah, Benjamin, and parts of Levi. So you might see the term Jew, like Paul, for example, in the New Testament might say he's a Jew. But then you'll get, when he gives his registry, he'll say, I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. So Jew can be used to encompass Israel. So that's why I was just trying to see exactly. So I would say I'm a Jew. I would absolutely say that I'm a Jew.
Right. But black Hebrew, but Hebrew Israelites are not Jews.
Not all of them, because like let's say if they're from the tribe of Ephraim, they would be Ephraimites.
If they're from any of the 11 of the 12 tribes,
they would be from that tribe. Right, exactly.
So what in terms of belief and in terms of practice, I understand that the lineage argument, right? But in terms of belief and practice, what would be the difference between, say, between someone who's from Naphtali or from
nothing.
No. I'm saying those 11 tribes that aren't Judah, right?
Right.
Y'all have a set of. There's no distinction among your beliefs and practices. However, where do you differ ideologically or in terms of practice from somebody in Israel, say an Ethiopian from Beta Israel who identifies as a Jew?
Oh, okay. So I would probably, when it comes to anyone overseas, I would probably just have to vet if they're legit or not. Like, let's
take overseas off the table.
Okay.
Say there's a black Jew right here who goes to the local synagogue. They're black, so we're not questioning their lineage. We'll get to the European piece in later. But they're black. They go to the synagogue. They observe the Sabbath. They go to they observe Passover. They do the things that it sounds like you do. Where are y'all different in terms of
differences? Would probably be in doctrine at that point. So like because if I see them going into the synagogue, I would look at them as being Jewish, even if they're black. So like Jewish people believe that you're Jewish by your mother. That's of course not in the Bible. You're not Jewish by your mother. You're Jew by your father. Their practices that a moyo that they do, the way they circumcise their children on the 8th day. That's not in the Bible as well. The fact that they're going into the synagogue submitting unto a people that are not the people. So at that point, even though I would look at them as Israelite, like even you, for example, I would look at you as an Israelite. So it would just be doctrinal differences at that point. Because I would be saying, okay, if you my brother, why aren't you on this side with me? Why would you be with them in the synagogue? Why won't you come to me in the school? That's what I would at that point.
But there are a lot of black Jews who would say, why are you conceding this territory to them? This synagogue is ours. This is our tradition.
Mm-hmm. But if they say it's theirs, I would say, why are you not running it? Because we run ours. That's what I would say. Because I would say, okay, if that's your synagogue, why is the Jewish rabbi white looking? And what I mean by white looking, why you have a white Jewish man that's not a Jew running it? Because the Bible, Psalms 147, 19 and 20 says he showeth his word to Jacob. He have not dealt so with any other nation. So how could you be in a synagogue where you got someone of another nation running your belief when God said he only gave it to Israel. So that's where we would have those fundamental differences, because if you're not an Israelite, you can't be my rabbi, you can't be my priest, you can't be my leader, you can't be my prophet. Whereas someone in that synagogue can have someone that's not their people be their priest, their prophet, their rabbi.
You say the Bible doesn't talk about Judaism being passed through the matrilineal line, right? Or through matrilineality. That is to say,
that's correct.
That mothers don't pass on your Jewish, your Jewishness doesn't come from your mother, comes from your father. That argument you're making contradicts modern rabbinical Judaism.
Right, definitely.
Halakha is not something that y'all rocking with. Talk to me about how y'all make sense of rabbinical Judaism, how you make sense of that entire tradition. Because again, there's a lot of stuff. One of the things I found fascinating, to give you some context, I spent as I'm an anthropologist by training, and I spent most of my time in the Middle East thinking about the African presence in Palestine, but mostly among Arabs in the Arab society, Palestinian society. But I have spent some time studying the aliyah of the sort of the immigration patterns of Ethiopian Jews as they came around 1985 to what is now modern day Israel. And one of the things that I found fascinating was when they would say, when the Jews in Israel, the Ashkenazim would say, those Ethiopians ain't Jews. They would point to the fact that they weren't following rabbinical Judaism. They were pointing to the fact that they were doing temple worship and that they were doing other things that preceded the fall of the second temple. So what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is two things. One, I want to understand how you see sort of that whole tradition of rabbinical Judaism. But second, again, what do you do with the people like the Ethiopians who say we're kind of doing the same thing you're doing,
right?
At least before we got to Israel,
right? So Revelations 2:9 calls those Jewish people the synagogue of Satan. That's Revelations 2:9 when it says, "I know thy works and thy blasphemy." I know thy. I just want to read it real fast and then I'll explain.
Oh yeah, you gonna explain to me why you're reading from the New Testament too?
Oh, okay. Oh, you say why do I read from the New Testament?
Yeah, it's fascinating from this tradition of Torah to use the New Testament as evidence of a claim if we saying Christians got this thing wrong because they got some scriptures that ain't right in the New. You see what I'm saying?
Right. But okay, so now Christians don't know the Bible at all, and the New Testament is Israelite culture, just like the Old Testament. Like I don't know, and that's the one thing that always fascinated me about the Jewish man, because the Jewish man will reject the New Testament, but he does follow the Talmud, which is where they get you from your mother. That's very Talmudic. That halakha, everything that they do is primarily Talmudic. So when I read Revelations 2:9, when it says, "I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich," that's talking about us being poor, but we are rich, meaning this culture is what makes us rich, which we've left. And it says, "I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." So that's the Jewish man. The Ethiopian, let's say I'm gonna just assume that the Ethiopian is an Israelite. When you made an excellent point when you said they don't like them because they are keeping things according to the temple, as opposed to things post or after the temple has fallen.
The rabbi suddenly becomes a central figure.
Right, exactly. So everything about the Jewish man, they don't use Torah. So like if you take how you are a Israelite according to the Father, there's 12 tribes of Israel, right? Even the Jewish men will say that there were 12 tribes of Israel. All of those are men. So we know that Jacob had one daughter, Dinah, who was attacked by a brother from not a brother, but an African, but she never had no son. So there is no tribe of Dinah that exists. So how can they create this all throughout the Torah? It's all about the son, the son, the son, the son, the son. But then when it comes to the Talmud, now it's switched to the mother, the mother, the mother, the mother, the mother. So that would be the first strike. And that's why, and I'll tell you another thing. When I went to Israel, so I went to Israel in 2017. I spent about 15 days out there, and I met this brother. And I always say I'm gonna upload this video, and I forget to upload it. And so I had a full conversation with this brother, and his tribe of people never left Israel. When the second temple fell, they never left Israel. And when a Jewish man came in, they put them in what they call like the prison section of it and kept them there. And so to monopolize on Judaism is why the Jewish man rejects the Ethiopians, not just the Ethiopians. When Ben Amin from Chicago, when they went over to Israel, when they said we're the children of Israel too, because remember, the Jewish man said they're all about the diaspora. They say that they're the diaspora because they come from Russia, from Poland, from Germany. That's where
that's the argument of Zionism, is that we are Jews are a nation in of itself, regardless of where you come from.
Right, except when it comes to melanated looking people.
I always laugh when the Israeli government shows Jewish immigration, and they show the Aliyah pictures of the Yemeni and the Egyptian and then they get to the Ethiopians, and I always ask them, why are the Ethiopians one in color? Everybody else is in black and white. Yeah. It's because they got to come 40 years earlier than the Ethiopians. Yeah. You know?
And if you go into that region, biblically, they wouldn't look like the Jewish man historically. I remember I talked to this Jewish guy. They always tell me the same thing. Yeah, they was dark skinned. They was black back then, but over time they become white. I said, how is that possible when Eskimos still have skin tone? Elon Musk looks white to me, and he's South African. White people have been in Africa for thousands of years. They ain't changed their skin tone. So how do you just go from being one complexion to now you're only this complexion? So the real reason why the Jewish man will reject an Ethiopian, will reject Ben Amin, will reject us, is because they can never tell the truth of who we are. And that's the real argument. Because if it was about diaspora and we're saying we the people, why not accept us if it's not about color? That's how you know that everything about them is about color. And then the mother part is because they're Talmudic. They're not Torah keepers. They mention the Passover and they'll talk about Moses and stuff like that, but their practices come mainly out of the Talmud. It doesn't come out of the Torah at all. We come out of the Torah. And one thing I wanted to address again, Christ was prophesied in the New Testament. So when we get to the New Testament, all of that is about Israel too. That's not about God loving everybody. Christ said, I'm only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Paul said, it's my heart's desire for Israel to be saved. So Christianity just made it about everybody, which is why most people reject it. But Christ never came for everybody. Just so everybody can know that too.
If you accept the New Testament, why not accept the Quran?
So the reason we don't accept the Quran is because in order for a prophet to be a prophet of God, you have to be an Israelite first. Muhammad is not an Israelite. And we look at the Quran as a total separate God, total separate belief from the Old and New Testament. The name of the God is different. The practices of both belief systems are totally different. The people are different. So like there's Ramadan in the Quran. Ramadan is not in the Torah. There's Passover in the Torah. Passover is not in the Quran. Christ kept the Passover. Muhammad and them didn't keep the Passover. When they pray facing Mecca. When we pray, we face Jerusalem. The name of the God is different. The Quran's name of the God is Allah. The name of our God is Yahweh. Some may say Jehovah. Some may say Yahweh. So those core things is what separates them.
I guess what I mean is, and I'm not saying this to make a case for one religion over the other at this moment, right, but to say we accept the revelation of Moses, and we accept the revelation of other prophets,
right,
in this religious tradition, and then Muhammad comes and says, "I'm in the same line, right? I'm from Ishmael for sure,
from Ishmael, right? That's correct.
But I'm part of this prophethood, and I'm coming to this Arab nation,
right?
And hence Allah versus Yahuwah, Yahweh, etc.
Right.
But fundamentally, we accept the Injil, the gospel. We accept the Torah.
Right.
We accept all the old books, and now we're saying here's one more revelation. I guess for me, I'm often fascinated how religious people make the determination to accept this one, because I mean, a believer could say, and I say believer, I mean a Muslim believer would say, well, yeah, Muslims did play the Qibla, the direction of prayer was Jerusalem until
it was for a while,
until Muhammad moved it to Mecca, right? That Ramadan is now the new way but it's still in the same tradition, but we're doing something different. Just like the New Testament represented not a break from the old laws, right? Jesus said, "I didn't come to
break." That's right.
To break those old laws, but there's some new stuff here.
Not necessarily. I don't know of too much new, because even the forgiveness of sins through Christ, that's not new either. But in the beginning of the conversation, I said what makes being an Israelite different is that, and I use Commander Jenny Hahn as an example. He didn't come and say, we're going to follow it this way because it's my way. What is written for us is already written. There's a prerequisite for an Israelite, what you believe, how you worship, the name, everything. So there's also a prerequisite for how we can accept a prophet for the God of Israel too. So the prerequisite is Deuteronomy 18. He has to be one from among our people. So Muhammad is an Ishmaelite. He's one of the fleshly sons of Abraham, but the son of the promise is Isaac. So for the Israelites, it has to come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if he's not the son of Jacob, then he can't be a prophet for us. So the difference would be when it comes to the Quran, I don't think they have that boundary that we have. So our God, you know what I'm saying? So our God gave us a limit. Okay, y'all can follow, like, let's say you and I, like I said, I look at you as an Israelite. So let's say if you came with a revelation and you're an Israelite, I could listen to you. But if this Chinese man comes with a revelation and he comes to you and I as Israelites, he can have that revelation for his people, but that's not something we could follow because our God gave us a prerequisite.
There's people in the chat who are atheists or agnostic, secular humanists. They are all sorts of people.
Right. Before you go, I did put the 12 tribe chart link in the back chat.
I did, and I posted it. I posted it, and I y'all look up. I posted it again, but I posted it, and I say
from Captain. Sure you got it. Yep.
Yeah, you know, I saw that. I just did it again. There are people who want to say, why believe any of this? We have access to, I mean, at some point we are trusting in a text that has been shown to be problematic, you know, and I know you all don't worship the King James version, but we all know the King James stuff.
I follow the King James version though.
Which I also find fascinating as well. I've always found that fascinating. We can talk about that too. But I guess before we get to the specific version, I guess the bigger question is, why do you believe that this book is real?
You know, Romans the 3rd chapter says, what if some believe? What if some did not believe? Shall that unbelief make the faith of God of none effect? So when I think about the conditions of Black people from our disobedience, and I can read that in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. That's probably the main reason I believe, because before the Bible, before I found out I was an Israelite, I didn't have a real answer to our plight. There's no answer for Black people. There's none. What I mean by no answer, why are we the way we are? Why don't we have an identity? Why, like right now we're called African American. Before that, we was Negro, we was colored, we was Black, we was all these different acronyms. But when you ask people what's your identity, can't nobody give it to us. And then when I read Deuteronomy 28 and it says if we kept the commandments, we be blessed. If we broke the commandments, we would be punished. And I read Deuteronomy 28:68 and it says, you shall be brought into Egypt again with ships. And now that's talking about our slavery. And it says no man will redeem you, meaning no man will redeem you, meaning save you. And we have not been saved since we've been in here. So I believe the records, because those records are the only thing that really can give us an insight to our condition and getting out of that condition. Because when I go out to my people and I give them these commandments, I've been doing this since 2010. And in my short time in this, I've seen us keeping the commandments, and I've seen us grow and build and get better in 16 years. And I can only imagine where it can go from there. You want to say something? I see it.
I heard you say this a long time ago. My wife and I talked about this, actually. Okay. Now you just reminded me of it. And we both, although neither of us believe in this, we both agreed with a point you made.
Okay.
And I might let me put it different. Let me put it so that the audience can understand. I know you'll understand no matter how I say it, but I want to make sure the audience gets what I'm saying. There's an argument that if a scripture came down and said, let me take a step back. First, religious people often point to their scripture to prove the validity of their scripture, right?
Right.
Which you can't do, right? At some level. I mean, not to win an argument with somebody who doesn't already operate in that universe, right? I remember in being in Philly in the 90s and asking somebody, well, how do you I love you, man. You understand me.
Right back, right back, bro.
Yo, man, look, it is what it is.
I love you too, brother.
But I remember the 90s people would say, I would say, how do you know the Quran is correct? And they'd say, well, look in the chapter 2 where Allah says, look, this is the book with no doubt in it. That proves it. And I'd say, well, if you've already accepted the revelation, then sure. But if you've already accepted the revelation, then I don't need to know that there's no doubt in it, right? Because I've already accepted the revelation. Same thing with Christianity, same thing with Judaism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I don't already operate within the universe of this, then the scripture can't prove to me that it's right. But you said something else, which is where my American pragmatist philosophical tradition kicks in, where it might be truth is what works, right? Where you're saying, look, I believe this because I've seen it work. I've seen people's lives change. I don't disagree with that. But the reason I posted a comment from a brother from the Nation of Islam who said, well, the Nation of Islam is the answer. Is because this is what me and my wife were talking about, is I think any of these organizations at some level, if you follow them and follow their principles, your life will get better, right? If I give up pork and don't cheat on my wife and don't drink and work hard and don't smoke and, and eat healthy and, you get what I'm saying? And save money. I mean, I may not get rich and famous, but my life will get significantly better. We've seen in prison, a whole lot of people's lives get better when they follow Islam. I've seen people's lives get better when they follow the Hebrew Israelite belief and doctrine. So I think all that is true, but you all are making a particular claim. Your claim isn't just that this thing works. You all are making a claim almost about our souls too, right? You're not just saying that this works. You're saying that if we don't do this, or if we do any of those other things, there's a level, there's some kind of divine punishment for this.
That's what we've been going through. That divine punishment. We've been going through, like, if I was to read Deuteronomy 28 and 56, when it talks about the wife being evil to her husband, the husband being evil to his kids, it's because we're breaking those commandments, the fundamental things that we suffer. So if I were to read, this is Deuteronomy 20, and I know you say we can't read it with the book. This is prophecy, so it's a little different.
That's the asterisk.
Yeah, that's the little asterisk I'm gonna throw in there. So when it says the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set her sole of a foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom. And it says the same thing about us as men, as we would be evil towards our wives. And so when I talk about the Most High punishing us, the proof is in the condition of Black people. Our Black people, we have, in Lamentations, it says our eyes have failed in looking at a nation that could not save us. In 2025, we keep looking at this nation to save us. But if you or I was to come out with the full blueprint plan to fix us, our people wouldn't trust us because we still looking for a nation to save us. So ours is more prophetic. That's how we look at it. If I was to go scientifically, like when Job, in the book of Job, when it talks about springs at the bottom of the sea, I was arguing with an atheist one time, and he said, how can you prove God is real? I said, well, how did the writer of Job know that there were springs at the bottom of the ocean when they didn't discover that to the 1900s? And they usually don't have an answer for that. Or how about life being in the blood, which they didn't discover to the 1800s? But we can read that in the Bible. So now that's maybe like a scientific, like the God that gave them that information had to know that in order to say that. So I would ask them to explain that too.
How do you all sort of make sense of God? Is God, let me ask a specific question. Is there a God who can hear our conversation right now?
I don't know if I would make him that. What is the word I'm looking for? Not nitpicking. It's a word. And I lost the word. I had the word. I wouldn't say he's that nuanced. So in Jacob's, you're familiar with the term Jacob's ladder, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On the vision of Jacob's ladder, what Jacob saw in the vision was the angels coming up and down. So there was a ladder between earth and the heavens, and he saw angels going up and down. And so God has never physically been on this planet ever. He's never been on this planet. The angels come down here, and then they give the work. They give the report to him. So I don't look at it like he listening to every single thing, we say like that. But I will say that the angels, that's in the Bible also say you entertain angels unaware. So I would say that's the Most High. So
okay.
I wouldn't say he listens, like I wouldn't put him like that.
But the Most High is the singular being.
Yes, he's the Father, right?
And God is gendered. God is a man.
Yes.
Okay.
Not a man like you and I, but his spirit, his vibe is man, is masculine. I wouldn't say he looks like you and I.
Does God have a body?
Yeah, he sits on the throne. And when you read the book of Daniel, it says he got hair and he sits on the throne. So he has a physical body.
Okay, so it's a physical. So if one were to see God, God would look like one of these Israelites.
Yeah, the Bible says you would die if you saw him. So even Moses saw his glory. He didn't see him directly. Okay. So, but in the vision, you see him on a throne and he has woolly hair. So he does have hair in the body.
And this God figure who is male on the throne has existed forever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
God was not created.
No.
Okay. I mean, that's consistent with all these religions. Right. I'm asking purely for
what
clarity.
Makes us different, though, like when it comes to believing in Jesus. Now, we would say Yahweh in Hebrew. You're not for my Israelites, because Israelites go crazy when you don't use the Hebrew words. But so for my audience, I'm not going to use the Hebrew words because of the platform that I'm on. So when it comes to Jesus, people believe that Jesus is God. That's not in the Bible either. Jesus is not God either. Jesus is the Son of God. So that would be a fundamental difference between us and Christians, because Christians would believe Jesus is God. One more thing, when we talk about the King James Bible, King James did not write the Bible. All King James did was just authorize the Hebrews and the Hebrew scholars and Greek scholars to just translate the Bible. And there was other Bibles that existed. You had the Geneva Bible, Bishop Bible. So he just translated the Bible. That's it.
Talk to me a little bit about organizationally, sort of how you all, not organizationally, I don't mean that, I don't mean to be that technical. I mean more institutionally, sort of what you all are asked and required to do. For example, most of us, and people, we got jokes. Everybody got jokes about Hebrew Israelites.
Right. Listen, I was just called a Power Ranger the other day.
I'm about to say, and that's one of them. Power Rangers is one of the things. I've heard I've heard Earth, Wind, and Fire. Power Rangers. This is y'all. It looks like Walnut Street, or Chestnut maybe, but and downtown Philadelphia. This is you all outside. This is a very familiar scene,
right?
I mean, I've seen this. If I've seen it once, I've seen it a million times. In the 90s, I would see it at the Clothespin downtown in Philadelphia. When I went to Atlanta, I would see y'all out there. You all with a microphone, provocative signs.
That's right.
We'll talk about some of them signs. Some of them I think are jarring. Some of them I think are anti-Semitic. Some of them I think are Islamophobic. Some of them I think are anti-Black. we could talk about all of that.
Oh,
But
definitely.
my first sort of question is, why do y'all do this?
For everything that you just said, because it's thought provoking. If you take the middle image, the first image by the money bucket, that picture of Caesar, everybody believes that that's Jesus. So we put Christianity, we put 666 on top of it and say imposter. You know what that's gonna make everybody do? Stop and say, how could you do that to Jesus? And so it becomes a talking point because we're very visual. So when you see and when you look on the opposite side, you see that other image and it says true image of Jesus. So now, according to the Bible, Jesus has on a green garment, so we make it correct. He has white woolly hair, we make it correct. He has skin so dark as if he burned in the furnace, so we make it correct. So now it's to take the psychology, because there was this I remember I love comic books, right? And so I saw this picture one time where they had this little black kid looking up to white Superman because we didn't have no real superheroes to look up to. So now all our superheroes were white. It's the same thing with our belief system. Most of us believe, even if the black people that reject Jesus Christ reject him because he looks white, and we don't want to serve a white king or white God if you believe it's such. Even on the episode of Good Times, when the son brought out the black Jesus, and remember, they was getting all the good luck in the world.
Yeah.
And mama was like, my Jesus is white.
Right. And it took the militant midget to come out and break down for them. He had like lamb's wool and feet like burnt brass.
Lamb's wool, feet like polished brass. And so Christ said in John 8:32, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So every sign you see, the abortion sign, is so that we can wake our sisters up from being 10-12% of the population, but like number one in abortions. The we are not African sign, which now that's probably the wildest one, because we got some wild pictures, but all them pictures in there are the cultures that Africans do. So when you say you're African, are you putting that plate in your lip? Are you letting the cow, pee on you and stuff like that? Now, that's not every culture in Africa, because
it's not most cultures in Africa.
Right, because it's like 40 countries over there. And
so why do that? Why represent our brothers and sisters in Africa in ways? Because at some point, y'all start to sound just like the white supremacists.
Well, what's interesting? It's hard to say we sound like the white supremacists when the white supremacists didn't come on African soil. Africans just sold us. Even if, let's say, if those are our African brothers, we wasn't too much of our brothers when it came to the transatlantic slave trade. So
I mean, I hear that. I mean, there's a longer conversation we can have about that, but I don't. At that time, I don't think of Africa as a monolith. I think of, I think we like to think
of monolith now, right? It's not even a monolith now. So you heard me earlier say that we got Israelites in Africa. So I'll give you a story. So when I went to Israel, so Ben Amin established this place called Dimona. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Dimona.
I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. So I got an uncle in Ashkelon, right?
Yeah.
And he took me to Dimona. So I'm sitting down with the elders in Dimona. The first question they asked me, said, man, why you be talking about the Africans like that? And so I said, well, we're not.
Just for context, for people that don't know, this group, there's a group of Hebrew, self-identified Hebrew Israelites who identify as the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. They made their journey from Chicago under the leadership of Ben Ami. Once he was Ben Carter, then he became Ben Ami Ben Carter, then Ben Ami Ben Israel. They went from Chicago to Liberia. They stayed for 3 years and then went to what is now present day Israel, and they settled in the southern part of Israel in a town called Dimona, where they have this area. And there's some, and I was going to ask you about these distinctions between y'all, but I just want to give people the context, because this African thing is big, because they actually call themselves African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. So that's a big deal to them, the Africa part.
Yeah. So when they asked me, they said, why do you talk about the Africans? I said, well, we're not Hamites. And they said, we know. And I said, well, that's who I'm talking about. So they agree that we're not Hamites, but because saying African is like saying American. So that's why it's offensive to them, because I'm hating on Africans. And I said to him, I said, well, if I said F America or we're not American, would y'all get offended? They said no. I said, well, when I speak, that's what I mean. So
but here's the problem with that, brother. When I look at the images of Africans looking like savages, Africans looking uncivilized, and that's the point of the images, right? To say, look at what Africa is. Part of those narratives and arguments were used to justify European colonization. I take your point about this African slave trade seriously, but the primary engine behind the Atlantic slave trade was still Europe, and
they didn't fight for us. Even historically in the 1800s, when those from North Carolina went back to Africa, them Africans didn't even accept them when they went back. They went to war, then they publicly lynched them in the 80s. So the relationship between Africans and Black people has always been like that. For us, we say, like, there's maps you could find where it says Land of Judah or Negro Land, because we primarily came from the west coast of Africa. So I'm never talking about the continent of Africa.
But those images look like the continent of Africa.
Yeah, they do.
So why do it?
Because we need our people to stop believing that we're African just because we were told we're African. And we need people to stop making Africa be a utopia or even a monolith, like you said, when it's not. Even in Africa, they have tribal wars amongst themselves. But when we think of Africa over here, we think, man, we got to go back to the motherland. Where if we went to the motherland today, they would not accept us in the motherland because we're not the same people. When they come over here, like, you and I would probably have a better conversation about the relationship between Africans and Blacks than I would with actual Africans that I've encountered. And because they look at us as lazy, they have derogatory terms for us, just like white folks do. So they don't look at us with the respect that you would want me to give them. So for us, when we go out on a camp, it's for shock value. So now when they see them images, they say, why you got that image there? I say, because we're not Africans. We'll prove it. And so we'll go into the Bible and show the differences between us and them. We'll go historically to show the differences between us and them.
So I think you already know this from what I've said the last couple of minutes, but I would say I find that deeply problematic. There are people, I'm thinking about ADOS, for example. You mentioned Tariq Nasheed. I can think about FBA.
Right.
There are organizations that say, look, there's a unique lineage and tradition and culture, even at this point, of being a descendant of African slavery here in the United States, or American slavery here in the United States, coming from Africa. I think there's a way to highlight that without demonizing or mocking or caricaturing people on the continent, or Muslims, right? Or these other groups with whom you may have an ideological disagreement. I think it's
outside of the sign, we don't talk about them too much unless we have to. Our primary enemy, we talk about white folk, we talk about America, we talk about the Israelis, we talk about that. We don't, the only time, to be honest with you, I've never really talked about Africans a lot until like the Polites and Shaka and Sanetta and Setis and them came in front of my camp to battle me. And so now as they trying to trash my Bible, of course I'm going to trash their.
You turned it up a notch, but them signs been there since the 90s.
No, that's what I'm saying. The sign, I'm not saying the signs haven't been there.
Okay.
But what I am saying is that even with them signs being there since the 90s, you're not going to find the major arguments of people having about us having the signs about Africa as much as they're going to have arguments about signs of that white Jesus. Like,
I think that's right. I mean, so there's a way that showing a black Jesus or criticizing a white Jesus unsettles a Christian, but we're not rejecting or attacking their Christianity as such in that moment because we're trying to bring them over, right?
That sign you have says 666.
Right, but it's based on the white Jesus figure, right? I guess what I'm saying is you'll hear where I'm going. You understand where you hear where I'm going.
Okay.
My concern is that when the Muslim sees that he's evil, or the African sees himself as an animal on that sign, or the person who identifies as a Pan-African, that you lose the room right then. If it's a shock value thing for teaching and conversion, how effective is it?
Extremely effective. The Muslim sign, I don't know if it's so much well, Muslims are definitely going to take it derogatory, but I
I'm
think
about to say, bro.
but so like if I was to say which one is the most egregious, I would say the African sign because of how graphic the images are. From a belief perspective, I would say Islam is probably the most egregious.
Yeah,
And then,
Islam is idol worship and
right,
a lie.
right.
Yeah, I
And then
definitely think Muslims ain't gonna rock with that.
right. And then the Christianity one, but now the crazy part is the Christianity Jesus one doesn't look as egregious, but it gets the most attention out of them all. It would be the Jesus one first, and then it's a battle between the Muslim and the African one, depending on who's looking at it. But that white Jesus is the primary argument that we've always had. Occasionally, somebody will argue with us about the African one. And again, we're just not Hamites. So what the African one is to just show that we're not Hamites. I'm using Hamites from the biblical term so people can understand this distinction. Because if I say we're not Africans, people will say you come from Africa, which I came. My ancestors come from Africa. So I'm not saying that that's not where we come from, but Elon Musk also comes from Africa, but nobody's looking at him as the actual African. So if you can make the distinction between Elon Musk, a Chinese person being born in Africa, then an Israelite should be able to make the distinction of being born in Africa, but not being an African or being a Hamite. So that's where we make that distinction.
When Jehovah's Witnesses come door to door, part of why they do it is because they believe that their faith commands them to do that.
Right.
Does your faith command you to do the street corner stuff?
Yes. The street speaking, now the signs are subjective.
What is it formally called? Is street speaking the formal name?
Yeah, street speaking is a formal name. So
Okay.
in the book of Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, and to go back to the founding fathers of ISUBK, when they read this verse, it's Nehemiah. Just trying to make sure I get the right verse. I think it's Nehemiah 8. Yeah, Nehemiah 8:1. It says, and all the people gathered themselves together as one man into the street that was before the water gate, and they spake unto Ezra the scribe. And so you'll read in verse 4, just for time's sake, and Ezra the scribe stood on a pulpit of wood, which they had made for the purpose, and beside him stood Mattathiah, Shema, Ananiah, Uriah. So if anybody can just, that picture that y'all saw, that's the pulpit of wood. And then the men that surround it is in Nehemiah, the 8th chapter, and the 4th verse. So what they would do is they would go on the corners in Jerusalem, and then they would teach people the law. So when we go out on the corners, we're doing it exactly according to what the Bible says. So that is a requirement. If you and I should be, you're going to go to, street speaking or camp. We call it camp as well.
Okay. Camp is the same thing.
Yeah. So, right. So Israelite School of UPK, that's the name of the school. Camp is what we do on Saturdays or sometimes Fridays, depending on, what location it is.
Got you. Growing up, I just always remember being on Friday. I knew y'all was gonna be outside.
Yeah. So it could be Friday or Saturday, sometimes Friday and Saturday. I know Philly used to be Friday sometimes and Saturday. When I came into the school, we was doing Fridays and Saturdays in Philly. Because I used to come to Philly. They didn't have a school in New York when I first got here. So I used to be in Philly like every week.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Jersey City. I'm born in Jersey City.
Oh, okay.
I was living in West Orange when I found out. I used to drive like 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I was going down to Philly. Like I would get off my job or my slavery, as we call it, and drive straight down to Philly and be up in them classes, 41 Garrett Road. Well, technically it's Upper Darby, but I'm
Upper Darby. Oh yeah, I know it well.
Yeah. So we used to go there and rock out with the classes.
Are you allowed, or no? Are you required to learn Hebrew as a member of the school?
Yeah. So I'm a novice in Hebrew. I'm not a Hebrew expert, so I could read it. Like if it's in front of me, I can read it. But on a scale of 1 to 5, I would probably put myself at a 2. So as a body, so we got some brothers, like there's a brother in New York, Hazahav. He's an expert at Hebrew. Captain Ashaparim in DC, expert at Hebrew. I'm not an expert at Hebrew, so I wouldn't put myself. So it's not a requirement. Yeah, it's not like you got to know Hebrew. You got to know it to pass the test to become an officer. But what you do after that, your gift is revealed. Some people have the gift of tongue to learn Hebrew like that.
When I was in the Ansar movement and in that tradition, a lot of the organizational rules were different than necessarily they were scripture based rather than U.S. culture based. For example, polygamy was permitted.
Yeah, which polygamy over here too.
It's permitted. Okay.
Yeah. The internet says I got 47 wives. That's what the internet says.
How off are they?
A lot. They off by a big lot.
I don't need to know. I don't want to get in your business. Man, after the day I'm having 47. There might be 47 too many.
Man, you crazy, man. You crazy.
How big is the organization?
So we're global. So we stretch all across. It's gonna be North and Central and South America, the UK, the Caribbean islands. That's how far we stretch that I'm aware of right now. If you want an exact number, I can't give you a number.
What would the range be? What would you say?
It's kind of forbidden. So like in the book of Chronicles, when David numbered the people, Israelites died. So we don't do like a number like that. So I couldn't give you like 900, 10,000, 5. I couldn't give you a number like that.
It would if I told you, if somebody said you had 250,000 people in your organization, would that feel like a big number or a small number?
I would probably say thou sayest, because when it comes to and the reason why I say that is because, and the reason why we don't look at numbers, because when you look at numbers, then you're saying your faith is in the number, not the Most High. So
for some people like me, it would be an assessment just of how big the movement is growing. You know,
well, I will say here's what I can say that's not breaking the Bible. When I came into the truth, my first Passover was in Upper Darby, PA. It was at the top floor. It was in a small room. It was maybe 30 brothers and sisters in there. At the Passover, it was thousands at the Passover.
Okay.
When I left the Passover.
That shows growth. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to be. I'm not the feds.
No. I didn't. No. I don't think you that at all. I just don't want to offend the Most High. That's all that is.
Understood. I respect your commitment to the principle of it. There was a question I had for you that, you know, there's some comments before we go. There's a few people who have questions in the.
That's fine.
In the comments here. There was something else I wanted to ask you. It'll come back to me. I lost my thought when I read these daggone comments. So Stacy Glore writes in and says, do you all agree or disagree that the invention of different religions, political parties, and other labels continues to divide us as a people?
Yes. I think the invention of them definitely divides us. That's why, like I say, the Bible is not an invention. It's just there. But the religions that come out of it, the Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, Baptists, Methodists, and even some Israelites. You know,
I was going to say, a whole lot of people say Israelites. Yeah.
Listen, I'm always going to be up front. I'm always going to be up front. And even some Israelites, and a lot of that comes from ego, power, belief. People want to be followed. People want to be worshipped. So you're going to always kind of like have that division until you can put your ego, pride, XYZ. For the Israelites, and for those that know me, I've always offered to sit down with every Israelite group. The offer has always been open. Commander General Yohana's been saying that since 2010. So nobody could say that we're not open to the conversation, but you got to be willing to come and have the conversation with us. So we don't have that pride.
I know what I wanted to ask you. Talk to me about those other groups. It came up briefly a moment ago. You know, I spent a lot of time studying, reading about, spending time with the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. I even slept in the I can't think of the kafar there, and just learned so much. When people talk about them, or when I talk about them, people think I'm talking about y'all.
Okay.
When people hear Hebrew Israelite, they don't think of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem.
Right.
They think of y'all. They think of the camps. They think of street speaking. They think of the signs. I mean, sure. If I would imagine that you wouldn't want it the other way.
Right. Right.
Where do you all differ where do you all differ ideologically, or are y'all all on the same page? I know I have some sense of what they say, but how are y'all different?
The only thing we have in common with the other Israelites is, I believe, who we say are the Israelites. So at the base level, we all believe that the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are Israelites. When you get past that, you're going to have differences. So some of them going to believe that God loves everybody. So you got some organizations that believe a white guy, Chinese guy can be a part of their organization. You're going to have some that believe Jesus is God. You have some that believe Joseph is not the father of Jesus. So at that point, it becomes doctrinal. So at the core, that we'll believe. I think they all say we got to keep the law that I know of. Outside of that, it's just going to become doctrinal at that point.
Christian ministers often tell me, at least the ones who I think are well read and thoughtful, that Christians can differ about doctrine. They appeal to Paul and say, Christians can appeal. Believers can disagree as long as it's not soteriological, as long as it's not about salvation, because Jesus is big for them, right? If you're Christian, right. Jesus that's kind of their guy,
right?
So
that's my guy too.
Real one. What are the things that make, like you said, there are doctrinal differences among different Hebrew Israelite groups? What do you all have to believe in order to be of the same sort? Like what's non-negotiable for y'all?
Being an ethnic Israelite, keeping the laws of God, and Christ is our Redeemer to the Most High. Those can't be broken.
Okay. And this is big, and this gets to the question of Israel-Palestine for me.
Okay.
You know what? I'm full transparency. I'm doing my own production right now. I want to put this banner up now so it comes up.
Yeah, do your thing, man. Do your thing, brother. It's all right.
Because sometimes I get to talking and hosting, and I'm like, you know what? But the question I want to get a sense of, in fact, as I write the question out, what do Hebrew Israelites think about Israel, Palestine? But I'm gonna start that question. I want to start by sort of asking you first what your belief is about the role or presence of Hebrew Israelites in Israel. Again, the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, the people who come out of the Ben Ami, Ben Israel tradition, believe that it was their divine duty to go to Israel, to establish a kingdom in Israel. We could talk about the shift in language about what that meant for the other people there, because I think it changed from the 60s and 70s to now, where they're kind of like the stars of the show, or the Israeli Zionist settler show.
Mm-hmm.
But they absolutely believe that God wants them to be there. Do you all believe that at some point in time, maybe not now, but at some point in time, you all are supposed to leave the United States and go to that land that is presently called Israel?
That's not what we believe. Because prophetically in the book of Joel, World War III will start there first before we get into that land. That's what the Bible talks about when it says that the Lord is going to bring the nations down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, or the valley of decision. As we get closer to the Third World War, that's when you'll see it's time for Israelites to be brought back to that land. Because even when the children of Dimona went there, they even had to compromise to get accepted. So what did they have to do? They had to give their children up.
Yeah, they joined the IDF.
Yep, their children had to join the IDF. So you went from one oppression to another oppression. So it's like, what type of oppression did you want to accept? Did you want to accept the oppression of white Americans or the so-called Jewish man? And so they accepted that. I remember there was a video when they was going to deport a lot of them. And in that video, the Mona people, they was like, we did everything we asked. We gave you our kids. We did all of this. And it still wasn't enough. So they didn't have no power. So you can't call that divine intervention. Historically, they didn't even get into Dimona first. They went into I think Liberia area.
Yep, they were in Liberia for 3 years. Yep.
Before they actually got into Demona. So no, we don't think that that's a hustle. I remember back when the H1N1 came out. Yeah, I think that the swine flu, when that came out, you had this organization that said that they was gonna have martial law in America. So this was our time to flee to go to Egypt. They ended up getting into Egypt. They couldn't get into Israel, so they went into Egypt, and then they found out that that was wrong. So no, we don't teach that.
So, but it sounds like you're saying after the World War III, after all the madness ends, at some point y'all will go there, right?
Yeah, but when I tell you, you're gonna think I'm crazy. But I'll tell you though, like, so for us in the Bible, when it says we'll be caught up in the clouds, that's what'll happen for us.
So you think like a divine ascent?
Yes,
Okay.
That's what I believe. Yep, that's what the Bible says.
So then, when you watch what's going on in Gaza or what's been happening in Israel, Palestine for decades now, if not over a century, what do you make of it? Do you support the Palestinians?
I would probably say I'm neutral, right? But if I was to say who's more right, the Palestinians are more right than the Israelis. Because
so why would you be neutral?
Because I don't support neither one of them. The land of Israel belongs to us. So I don't think the Palestinians have a right, or the Israelis, but the Palestinians have more right than the Israelis because they was there when the Israelis invaded. Like the Israelis wasn't even looking for that land. That wasn't going to be their first play. They was looking for anywhere to put them people. Like I think they was looking for places in Africa to put the Israelis.
It was the Uganda plan for sure.
Yep. I think even in South America, they was looking to put the Israelis. You go look at the Belfort Act, you look at all those things, when you look at that history, and even what made it worse, and why I say I'm neutral, but more on the Palestine side, is that there's videos you can see. I debated this Jewish guy on this subject, and there's a video where you can see where the Palestinians was welcoming them into the land.
Yeah,
there was supposed to be a deal where there was only a certain amount of Israelis that can come into the land, because that was supposed to be the compromise. They was only supposed to take this portion and take that portion. But if you know anything about the white man, so now, just for the record, the Jewish people are white people just like Americans are white. We don't separate them. They're all white people for us. The Jewish man is just what we would say is the chief tribe of the white man. So like any good white man, they're gonna make a deal with you and then they're gonna break the deal. And so what they did, you were gonna say something?
No, my brain just moving. Go ahead.
So what they did was they broke just like they broke the treaty with the Native Indians over here, the Jewish man just broke every treaty with the Palestinians. And so because the goal of the Jewish man is to take everything, they would rather eradicate every Palestinian if they could.
See, I think that's about Israelis and about Zionists. I don't think that's about Jews, right? And I always make that distinction, right? Because, and this is where the anti-Semitism conversation comes up. For me, I don't have any criticisms of Jews for being Jewish or as Jews, right? I don't, I have issues with the Israeli government, and although it is a Jewish state, I don't have an issue with the Israeli government because they're Jewish. I have an issue with the Israeli government because they're committing genocide right now. And if they were Christian or Muslim, or if they were, if they were ethnic Albanians, or if they were Negroes, a genocide is a genocide is a genocide to me. And so for me, the issue with what's happening in Gaza isn't about Jewishness, or the issue about breaking treaties, or about sort of going from sharing the land to taking over the land and making an apartheid state, which is what they've done, is about, it's not about their Jewishness. So for me, I always want to make that distinction. But for you, and when I say you, I mean your organization as well, you all have been pretty sort of transparent in saying that you all reject the legitimacy.
Yeah, we do.
Of European Jews.
Yeah, we reject all of them. I remember Helen Thomas, that white woman, told that reporter when she said they should go back home, and the reporter said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, they should go back home to Russia and Poland and Germany." They fired her that day. They fired her when she told.
After decades of being in the White House press room.
Right, after decades of being, once she told the truth. So whether now the Zionists would be like the Klan over here, and then the regular white person. So you got the regular white person, and then you got the Klan. So what you're saying is like you got the regular so-called Jew, and then you got the Zionist type of Jew. But the regular so-called Jew benefits from what the Zionist Jew is doing anyway. So just like the Klan, just like the regular white person benefits off of what the Klan did over here. So that's why we don't look at them as any different at all, because whatever the Zionist Jew does for them, they're going to take it.
I think part of it, I disagree on a couple of levels, but I want to focus on one piece of it, which is fundamental, right? Which is, as we talk about the kind of ontological claims about whiteness and evil, right? In other words, there are people who believe that white people are fucked up, right? And that whiteness makes you that way, right?
Right.
And that, yeah.
I believe they're born that way.
And that's the ontological claim, right? You believe that white people by nature are evil.
Yeah, I don't think they have a conscious bone in their body. You ever see a white person pray? You ever believe their prayer when they was praying? I remember when I you ever believed it when they pray, when you see them praying? Oh, Father God. You ever believe it?
I don't believe most people who pray, but it ain't about them being white though for me. But
yeah,
most people praying like that, I ain't trusting. But I you know this for me. I think, and Malcolm X talked about this when he was over in he wrote a really important letter from Jeddah. I was trying to think of where it was. After he made Hajj, and a lot of people think that Malcolm X went from thinking white people were evil to no longer thinking that white people, to suddenly just loving all these white people and romanticizing white people.
I don't think he was that, right?
No, he was making a more nuanced, to use your word, argument. He was saying white people are still fucked up, but it's a system of white supremacy that makes white people like this. So when I see these white people over here, it's not that these are magical white people or that Islam made these white people somehow different than the white. It's that if you haven't been infected by white supremacy and by white logics and by white supremacist logics, etc., then you can be a full human being. So he was
that's why I say that. But
you're saying something slightly different. You're saying that they're born that way, whereas a lot of people believe that they are made that way from these systems. But you're saying a white baby doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of being anything other than this.
My man, what I think is Muhammad Ali made that analogy when he was like, if I'm at the door and it's 1,000 snakes coming and 200 of them are harmless and the other 800 are poisonous, do I take the time to sort them out, or do I say F them all? That's probably a better analogy. So can you find a good white person? You might be able to find a good white person. I just wouldn't waste the time to find it. Like history, and that's just from history. History shows us.
That's fair for 99% of the world to say.
Right.
The reason why I won't let Captain Tazaryach say that is because you also are making claims about faith. So we're not, because you can be pragmatic about it and say, look, what it's so many. I can't pick out the good ones, right? I think white people, if you believe that so many white people are fucked up that you ain't got time to be pulling out the special ones, I hear that as a pragmatic argument, even if I don't agree with it. But the problem is, if you're helping people and guiding people toward faith, and we're making claims about what people are by nature, then we're making claims about how God, based on this conception of God, how God sees us, how God creates us. And so did God create white people evil, or did God not create white people?
No. So in Romans the 9th, that's actually a good question. In Romans the 9th chapter, and what's beautiful, this is in the New Testament for all the Paul lovers. So in Romans the 9th chapter, Paul says, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Esau is where white people come from, the so-called Jew or the Klan member. They both come from Esau. And then right after he says, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, he says, what shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid. And when you keep reading, it says, does not God have the power to make one vessel of honor and one vessel of dishonor? So then people are gonna have to face the absolute conclusion that God created the white man as a vessel of dishonor, but he also created us as a vessel of honor. So why are we following the dishonorable one? Because when we follow him, if you think about our criminality, our over-sexualization, our drug use, our very way of life in America is predicated on being American, and that's been dishonorable. If we were to be honorable and obey the laws of God, then we would set a whole new precedence. So he did create the white man to be evil.
Now I'm going to ask you one more question about this. This is a question of theodicy, right? This question of God and justice. This question of why do good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. Again, this is for the audience's sake.
Right.
In the Nation of Islam, same question was asked. Why does God make devil? Right? Why would God create this dishonorable being when you could just not do that?
Yeah, like so in Isaiah 55, it says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways.
Oh, come on, man.
Hey, I'm not finished.
Okay. Do you think?
I'm gonna go a little further. I'm gonna go a little further. And so when this says this Romans 9 and 20. I'm sorry, 9 and 19. It says, thou wilt say unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Who art thou that replies against God? That's your question. Why would he do that? Because he can. And here's the real question. I
need a blueprint. I need a little. I know God. You can't ask God for more than God could be.
No, the verses is breaking it down.
Okay, because I can't. I'm about to say, keep going. I'm listening.
No problem.
Read.
So there, so there's this thing people believe called free will, right? Free will was created to answer if God is all love, because that's what Christians was teaching.
Right.
Why is all this chaos? Why is all this death? Why is all this punishment?
Yeah.
And the only answer is free will. We're choosing, because we're disobeying God, we're getting punished. I'm sorry. We're choosing to die, or we're choosing to be evil. To take away from God is the one punishing you on purpose because he gave you rules. Most people think God is like your mama. You know, your mama got patience. Your mama got this. A father don't. A father's a disciplinarian. So when I keep reading, it says, shall a thing formed to him, shall a thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Have not the potter power of the clay to make the same lump to make the same lump, to make one vessel unto honor, another unto dishonor? What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? Our life is a test. That's your life. When you're born, your life is a test. Are you going to be obedient to God or disobedient to God? And based on the choices that you make will determine if God is going to punish you or if God is going to bless you.
So are white people the punishment for black people's disobedience?
Unfortunately, yeah, you could say, yeah. Like in Isaiah 47:6, when God said, I was wroth with my people, I polluted them, I put them in your hands, but then you didn't show them any mercy. So as we try to repent from the wickedness that we was doing, this white man has no mercy. That's why I said he's inherently evil. Like the Bible say, the wicked are estranged from the womb. At some point, you would think that the white man would have mercy on us. Even if you take them 200, and that analogy of them 200 white people, and everybody say there was some good white people here, there's some good white people here. Where's the white faction that came to change the amendment so that we can actually benefit from the Constitution, that we can actually, that we're no longer 3/5 of a man on the book, that 13th Amendment is gone, that there's things in place that actually specifically benefits us. When you think about everybody that was so-called free from slavery, black people are the only one that was free but given nothing. Now, this ain't to support a reparations argument, but the reason why black people are asking for reparations, because they're the only people that was never given anything when they were so-called free from slavery. But the Jewish man, speaking of the Israeli Palestinians, they put them in Palestine, or would have put them anywhere, because they knew they couldn't leave them in Germany to be further oppressed by other Germans. So they had to find a place to put them so that they can be mentally and spiritually free. But we was never given that.
We got a question coming in. We got two more questions before we go. Another one from Stacy Galore, who said, we recently heard Captain Tazaryach say publicly he hates white people. I'm curious to know if he hates white people more than gay black people. Do you hate gay black people? I don't want to presume that you hate gay black people.
I don't. Okay, hating black people is probably something I would never do. I don't. I hate what they do, but I don't hate them. Like, if a black person repents from their sins, they could be my brother or sister. But there's nothing that a white person could do that they could be my brother or sister.
What sins stop someone from being your brother or sister? For example, if someone is not observing the Sabbath, are they still your brother?
Yeah, so because they might not know, how to keep the Sabbath. So
what if they're gay? Is a gay person your brother?
A gay person is my brother of the flesh, but he's not my brother. What I mean by brother of the flesh, if he's black, all black people are my brothers. All black women, all black people are my brothers and my sisters. But that lifestyle will keep him separate from me. He couldn't hang with me. He couldn't sit with me and be gay. He would have to give up being gay.
That's rough. I would argue you can't do that, but
that's why I said that's rough. Because how would you know that they're not gay? I mean, that's like homosexuality is like.
Do you really believe it's just a choice? You don't believe people are born gay?
No, I don't believe people are born gay. Most people are gay from some traumatic childhood event.
Oh no!
Yeah, you think they're born gay?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think people are born with all kinds of identities across the spectrum. I think it's a myth and a dangerous myth to think that everybody who's gay or most people who are gay are been like abused or traumatized, because it also reinforces the idea that gay people are predators as opposed to people.
Most gay people are predators, though.
No, I can't let you. Let's move on from that because we're not going to agree on that. It doesn't feel. I would not feel responsible or principled to let that conversation.
No, we can go move on.
Bring It to Green said, speaking of seeing these guys in Philly, I'm curious what the opinions are of Move. Is the captain down with Ramona Africa?
I'm not. I know of Move, but I don't know about it. Like, I just know that
you're not a Philly guy, so
I'm not from. I'm from Jersey, y'all. I just went to school in Philly, so I just know of Move. I know they was falsely attacked, I believe. For sure. What they was doing, but I don't know the whole history of Move to answer that.
That's fair. Shout out to Isaac Hempseed, who just gave us 5 memberships. Thank you for donating, as always.
Looks like a white guy. Look at that white guy gift a membership trying to buy.
I don't think he's white though.
Okay.
I'm only saying that because he made a point of saying something about white people, and he could have been being funny or criticizing himself. But he made a comment.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you white.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. We got lineage questions. Colleague JNS Nakhti University said, can you ask him about what the Lion of Judah means to him and what he thinks of Islam? I think we know the second part, but right. I'm curious to know what the Lion of Judah means to you.
The Lion of Judah, so each tribe has a signal or sign about them. Ephraim has the unicorn, Levi has the Urim and the Thummim, Benjamin has the wolf. So the lion is the symbol of Judah. So she must be talking about my
yes.
I just because
I forgot I didn't even we both flow. I'm like,
as I look to the right, I see that the Lion of Judah is right there. So that's the tribe I'm from. So this was actually gifted from me by a good sister in Detroit. She has sent this to me. So the Lion of Judah in Revelations, I think it's the 5th chapter. It calls Christ the Lion of Judah. So I'm a Judite, Lion, King of the Jungle. That's what that is. As far as the Islam, it's great for the Arabs. That's what I'll say about Islam.
You got a lot on your plate. You're a busy man. I don't know if you follow everything going on in the world, but Kanye has pulled from y'all from time to time.
Kanye making me scared to still like him because Kanye wilding. But I love Kanye. Well, you got to say yeah. Before he talk about you, he gonna get.
That's true. I don't want that smoke. Yeah, I'm gonna fix that and make it say yay in a minute. But so Ye has talked about the Israelites, talking about who the real Jews are. He's come hard against people who identify as Jews. Again, I have found Kanye's commentary to be problematic for 2 reasons. I mean, a lot more than that, but 3 reasons. Reason 1, I think it's deeply harmful to an abusive and racist and all the other things, or whatever words you want to use, to the way he's talked about Jewish people writ large, I think is unacceptable, deplorable. And I think the word anti-Semitic is overused, and I think it's used in ways that deny our ability to have legitimate criticisms of Israel. and legitimate criticism, but some things are actually anti-Jewish, and it's attacking Jews for being Jewish. And when I see Ye do that, when I see him talk about wear Nazi stuff and KKK outfits, and and explicitly say that he loves Hitler, and start calling himself Yadolf Hitler, I can't support that, and I don't see any value of anybody supporting that, no matter what your religious or political beliefs are. And unless your religious and political beliefs are anti-Semitic, I don't see how that could be okay. My second reason is that Ye is so deeply uninformed. It's like he did a drive-by. Like he heard somebody say a sentence and then decided to repeat that sentence. Mm-hmm. So when he's like, "We the real Israelites because we from the blood of Christ," and if you ask him to say anything other than that sentence that he kept repeating, I'm not sure he could. I'm not sure he understands it. And then third, I think Ye says and does things that are deeply anti-Black.
Right.
Even in the context of attacking, I mean, like, supporting Nazism and Hitler is evil to me, no matter what. But to watch people who identify as pro-Black defending it as if Hitler was pro-Black or as if Nazism was pro-Black, to me is bizarre and just, again, uninformed. So for me, when I hear all of that, I'm like, do the Hebrew Israelites want to be tied up in Ye? Does Ye want to be tied up with the Hebrew Israelites? Neither of them sound like good ideas.
I interviewed Ye on Clubhouse back when the Kyrie Irving thing happened, right? And so what I first say about Ye, he's a free man in the sense that he's free to just say what he wants. But now with that said, unlike an Israelite that's doing it for their people, Ye's is based on rejection first. What I mean by rejection is like when he was getting what he want with the Adidas and working with the Jewish man and stuff like that, everything was all good. It's only when they started attacking and not letting him have the same freedom, or maybe he wasn't as cool as he thought he was. Now it's like, get in your place, boy. And so Ye didn't like that. And so now Ye is a free man, and he was always wild. Remember, before he said that about the Jews, he did say George Bush don't care about Black people. So him saying crazy stuff off the cuff is not something new. So, but in the beginning, he had a point. Remember when he was on Drink Champs and he was like, "I'm a F your woman, I'm a F your B, I'm a kill his nigga. I'm a F your B, I'm a kill his nigga." And he was like, that music can be propagated by Jewish people that run hip hop, but good music for hip hop can't be propagated. So as he would do that in the beginning, I was all for him. In a sense, I'm still for him, because although the Hitler and everything that Hitler did and stuff at the surface level. So at the surface level, we look at what Hitler did, and Kanye West mentions Hitler. It's like all we think about is, oh, Hitler did this, he unalived these people and stuff like that. But nobody looks at Ye's reasoning for why he's doing what he's doing with Hitler. And if this,
what is his reasoning?
I'm about to break it. So if his reasoning is legit, I do support him. So this is the reasoning that Ye said. The reason that Ye is supporting that is because the Jewish people that run music, that run media, that run Hollywood is only portraying Black people that are twerking, getting high, unaliving themselves. So if they can exploit Black people that way, he's doing this with the Hitler thing to take something that's egregious to Jewish people and putting it in their face and saying, if you don't like this, then stop propagating our people that way. Now, that's what he's saying at the surface level. I think I had, when I saw his tweet about that, I shared it. Now, but he's crazy though. What I mean by crazy is the stuff that he's doing when he's attacking Black people, the stuff he's saying about Jay-Z, the stuff he's saying about Beyonce, the stuff that's what make his message seem like it's not as legit as it is. Like, I've been the same since y'all know me. I say the same thing in 2010, same thing in 2016. When Ye starts talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce, it doesn't have he loses the power that he could have when he starts talking about Black people. If it's about exposing a Jewish man exploiting black people, so he gonna exploit Jewish people, and he stayed right there, it's very easy to stand with him. But when he switches and goes to something else, that's when it makes it hard. So for the Israelite side, you know, it's good, but it's bad.
Yeah.
Then it's bad, but it's good. It's like depending on, you never know what Ye is. Like it's hard to read him because he don't have nobody guiding him. He don't have nobody in his corner that can give him something that can make him say what he should say the appropriate way. But he's free. Now, as he's throwing it in their face, I don't have pity on the Jewish man because of everything that they throw in our face. Like they'll take, like, when the last time you seen a good female rapper? What I mean by good female rapper, a sister that might rap and make music like Latifah would, like a Lauryn Hill would. They're not gonna get promoted. A hip hop artist, like the Christian rapper. What's the Christian rapper? I can't remember his name.
Lecrae, you talking about
Oh no, not Lecrae. He got the dreads, light-skinned brother. I forget his name.
Oh, you talking about D1.
D1, right? Now you take D1. Now I don't like Christian music at all, but D1 is I don't like
most Christians don't either.
Yeah, I don't like no Christian music at all. But his type of music, you know, back in the 90s, you had Onyx and Public Enemy. You had Arrested Development and the Wu-Tang Clan. Like there was a lane for all different forms of music because it was art form. Now there's only shoot 'em, have sex, throw them away, kill them, and do all of this. So it's hard for me to feel bad for the Jewish side because the Jewish side is exploiting us. So that's where I'm kind of at with it.
I can't accept that as an argument that's persuasive to me. Primarily because Hitler didn't go out, even if I accepted the premise, which I don't.
Right.
Jesus, Kanye. Kanye is making a case about Jewish execs that then applies to all Jewish people. In other words, it's not like Hitler was going out there executing Hollywood execs. He was killing all Jewish people indiscriminately. Right? And so to say that I'm mad at Hollywood executives
and music executives,
excuse me, actually more music executives who happen to be Jewish is problematic to me. For one, it's not their Jewishness that he's presuming that it's their Jewishness that makes them act that way, as opposed to the fact that they're just music execs. And I say that because Black music execs also traffic in Black misery and Black pain and all that shit. So, you know, when I see what the Black exec does and what the Protestant does, the Gentile, the Jew, whatever, I see them all do the same thing. I think that's a function of capitalism. So for me to point out their Jewishness as the reason, already sets us on the wrong course. But second, why not go after them instead of using a symbol of Nazism that has been used to do harm to all Jewish people, whether they have done anything to anybody or not? It's collective punishment. It's saying I'm going to do, and the problem is symbols of Hitler and symbols of Nazism people aren't making distinctions about who to apply them, even if I accepted that all those executives were evil. Those images encourage violence against all Jewish people. They encourage violence against all vulnerable people. And Jews have been vulnerable for centuries, not just since the Nazi era. So for me, I think it's deeply dangerous. And it kind of loses the plot a little bit.
Right. And yeah, that's why I say I don't agree with his methodology because it don't have no structure. It's all over the place. But like,
okay, I'm glad you said that.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's good and bad, it's bad and good. The statement that he made, but then the way he's going about promoting the statement is where I disagree. But I'll tell you like this. What he's doing with putting Hitler in the face is no different than slave movies being put in our face all the time. Even the music. No,
when you watch a slave movie, you don't walk away thinking that slavery was good.
No, but the mental psychology is for black people to know their place. When you talk about the music, now we're stereotyped. Black people are, and the crazy thing about the stereotype, I was watching Bill Cosby in the 70s make the same statement about black on the black on black crime that we do now. Not the side, I'm gonna just say what he said. It's gonna come right to my point. Bill Cosby was doing this interview in the 70s, and he was like, y'all keep telling me about all these crimes that we commit, but when I go read the newspaper, whenever a white guy commits a crime, it doesn't put their race. It doesn't say the white guy unalived this one, but when it's a black person, they always make sure they put a black person. Like, why don't they make it the same? And so when what Kanye is attacking from Hollywood into music does create a stereotype. You could see it in the election. In the presidential election, when Kamala Harris, who decided to be black for the election, when she selected the black people to promote, she had Megan twerking, she had Glorilla. Why is Megan and Glorilla the representation of us? So his statement, I agree with the statement, but the way that he's going about doing it, I'm not saying that he got to throw a swastika in the face. I'm not saying he got to put the hat on and all of that. I'm not saying that he got to do all of that. But what I am saying is that statement of that statement of why he's doing it. Let's not act like, when I'm saying, I'm not talking about you at all, Mark. When I'm saying, talking to the audience, let's not act like there's never been an exploitation of us to keep that stereotype there. Even when we get unalived, when we do a crime or anything like that, like the brother Carmelo Anthony, they're trying to paint him out like he's this exorbitant criminal, bad guy, XYZ like that, when he just defended himself. Anytime a black person is involved in any type of crime, they look for something bad about him. If he's unalive, they do that. So there's always been this stereotype, and most people think that Jewish people run media, which is why Kanye West has taken the position of Jewish people running media. And so that's why he's attacking it. So I don't agree with his methodology, but his premise does have validity to it.
Before you guys, I gotta ask you one more question. What's the UFC belt about?
Oh, because I'm the champion in debate. So this belt was actually given to me by Tommy Sotomayor because he said I'm the champion of debate. So I debate a lot. You know this, Mark.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of debates, so that's my belt for being a champion.
I didn't know if you were secretly doing some MMA or something.
Nah.
Is self-defense training part of the?
Definitely. Yeah, we actually at the Passover, the 2025 class of Hebrew Academy. Like I graduated from the class in 2012, so we do a training, and ours is self-defense. I'm glad you said it like that because we teach people self-defense. We don't teach people to go on offense. We teach you to defend yourselves. Know when to defend yourself. So the 2025 class in IHBK just graduated this year. So we do teach that as well.
Wow. Time is moving, brother. Look, I got to go. We're at the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, I looked up at the clock. I said, damn, it's been 2 hours.
I know. And I could do another 2, man. But yeah, I appreciate you. We're going to have you back so we can build. And maybe we'll even organize a debate with you and somebody who's a worthy opponent. Y'all can go at it. I'll just moderate. Yeah. Anyway, brother, thank you for spending some time with us, man. Thank you for
no problem at all.
Teaching us about your teachings. And I think it was a great conversation. I gotta have you back soon.
Likewise, man. Definitely, man. You take care.
You too, brother.
All right,
everybody. That was Night School for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. It was complicated. It was interesting. It was compelling. I'm sure some of y'all had strong disagreements with some of it, and others saw points of resonance. So hopefully we can build and have a deep conversation with our Q&A afterward. The next time we talk to really get into it. But I want to read just a couple more comments. Kali from Nakta University said, Lion of Judah, rise and blessings to humanity and Palestinians. All we need is love. I would say we need more than love, but we do need love. Tracy Eva became a channel member. Thank you so much for joining the channel. I appreciate you. Thank you. Bring It to Green. You said, maybe homophobic men are just afraid gay men will treat them the way they treat women. It's a provocative thought. Kylie said Kanye West is a part of the tribe of Judah, but he has crashed out and his rhetoric is problematic. Jazz LP said, sir, did you choose to be heterosexual? Just like you didn't choose to be heterosexual, gay people didn't choose to be homosexual. Cut it out. That's Dallas's finest. Jazz LP responding to a comment that was made earlier in the show. Anyway, thank you all. I appreciate y'all for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, hit the join button. Become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel so that we can have the financial stability that we need to do the work that we do every single night without fear of intervention from the powers that be, from the corporate media outlets, from the mainstream media platforms. No, we want the people to fund this. So please do it. If you can't make a monthly commitment, at least make one commitment at a time, one payment at a time. You can go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in the coffers. It could be $1. We are grateful, y'all, family. If everybody gave $1, we'd be so happy. If everybody gave $1 million, man, life would be changing. There would be signs. But I'd love if someone did that. But don't worry about giving $1 million. Don't worry about only having $1. Just give what you can. But what would be ideal is if everybody watching today could give $5. If you just went to Cash App or Venmo and just dropped $5 in, we would have more than enough money to meet our financial goal for the month. So please consider it. Please consider putting $5 in Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle at the platforms you see here on the screen and making a donation. I would be so grateful. Anyway, I'll see y'all later, family. Pass the content around, like it, share it, subscribe to it, but most of all, study it, because that is what night school is all about.